Howdy everybody, Sandy Nolch here, the Space Cowboy for the Unshackled at the Millions March against mandatory vaccinations. The march is now leaving Parliament House and is heading down, I think, Burke Street. This is the second live stream I'm doing for today. And here you go, have a look. I remember you from last night.
Yeah.
How are you going?
Great to see you.
What's your name?
Hey.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, what's this? Punching bag, huh? Punch him, go. Wow, look at this. We've got the lefties here. There's lefties. Actually, no, they're not. These people made their signs look like the Antifa signs. Same style, but they're for freedom.
David Lindbergh, what have you done in the last 20 months to get us out of this, mate? You don't want to vote in bloody politicians or police that have done jack. Okay? Take your opportunity. You boys should have gone to the High Court.
It's one of the few publics that's been standing up and talking. It's common sense.
Were you begging during the lockdown?
Yeah,
for the whole time, no. And I live in my car, so they class that as a criminal travel. Thanks.
All right. Cool. Would you like to be in my live stream?
Yeah, sure, why not?
All right. What's the sign about?
Well, I'm a teacher and I'm a mum, and I've been homeschooling my own children and teaching my own class the last 2 years. It's hell. And this legislation that he's trying to get through to lock us down even more based on your faith, based on your political stance, based on your vaccine status. This man is a dictator and he has to go. He is ruining lives. My children are suffering from depression because they've been locked down in the most crucial years of their development for the last 2 years. His approach does not work. He's a disgrace to Victoria and he must go. Sack Dan Andrews.
We say no! 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 Save our children! Save our children!
All right, another massive protest today. As you can see, well, I can see better, but it's a long line, people marching for freedom. I don't know how anything could beat last week. Maybe it could, I don't know. But anyway, it's another huge turnout. In a week, 3 weeks ago, we had a huge turnout as well. So, we're just not going to stop until we get our freedom. And how dare they talk about another variant? This is bullcrap. They're doing a blitzkrieg attack. So they're trying to roll out communism as fast as possible in a blitzkrieg attack and knock us into apathy. So, knock us into depression and fear because we're so shocked about all the changes, trying to get it all done in like a 3-year period. Well, it's not going to happen. We're fighting back, we're bouncing back. We're not going to let them roll out this communist world government. We're not going to let the New World Order come about. More kids here today. There's Rukshan. It looks like he's walking through the march, so maybe he's doing what he did last time, where he started at the start of the march and walked all the way through, and he made a little video where he sped it up, and you got to see how many people he walked past. That was 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 Saturdays ago. So this one should be heaps bigger. And in fact, I mean, the crowd's really far. Anyway, it's going to be, I'm looking forward to this video he makes, because you get an idea when the crowd's all put into one street, how many people really, you get an idea, possibly estimate how many. But the protest last week, which had incredible attendance, Australia's biggest protest ever, that was so big, I didn't even think Rukshan could have done that. Because when people started marching, I don't know, it was just, it seemed to have gone forever. So I don't think he did one last week, but, well, I know he didn't because he was going to the lefty protest, the pro-vaccine protest. So, anyway, I'm looking forward to the video he makes. It's cool to see, you get to see how many people are at this protest. Either that or you do the a helicopter view of the crowd. That would help. But there's not many helicopter images coming out, which isn't surprising because the mainstream media and the government, they like to cover up the attendance of these protests. They don't want us knowing how many people are really here. women and more children at today's protest. More people coming out of the closet and admitting that they don't like the COVID bullcrap. But when you got peer pressure and all that sort of stuff, it's it's hard for people to just openly say, I'm against all this. Some people have too much fear, too much peer pressure to do that. But the more these protests go on and the more they see how many people think like them, more people will have the guts to come out and say, yeah, I don't agree with COVID. I don't want to follow these rules. I think there's a conspiracy going on. Sometimes I wonder if, judges, magistrate judges and Supreme Court judges and stuff like that, if they attend these sort of protests, it just makes me wonder because they're communists. The way they're running our legal system is forwarding communist agendas. They're part of the government. They're part of the problem. And I reckon they hide away in life. I don't think they come out on the internet and say their real opinions, and I don't think they come to these sorts of things. I think they're cowards, and because they're doing stuff to screw over the public, they keep their distance from the public. I think they're sociopaths, basically. And I've noticed that a lot of people who are high IQ people, not smart people, but high IQ people, so they manage to excel at school, an IQ test, but they don't have genuine intelligence and smarts, like what I think a lot of people here have. I noticed that these high IQ people are actually, a lot of them are sociopaths. And it's like, so to become a judge and some of these top lawyers, you have to be a high IQ person, not necessarily a smart person, but a high IQ. It just means they've got a good memory and they can process maths equations quickly, basically. So the judges tend to be these sociopaths because those roles require high IQ. So anyway, I just think that we've got trash sociopaths running our legal system. And they're supporting communism. You get builders, for example, they're smart guys. They might not be high IQ. I mean, obviously it's above average, but they're smart. They're not like this weird autistic smart, which I reckon the judges are, and the sociopaths are. Those guys are smart, and these guys you would see at these sort of rallies, I imagine. But anyway, it's just concerning to realise that the people running our legal system are sociopaths. And they're negative people. I'm telling you this. That's why if you ever get involved with the legal system and lawyers, watch out, because 30% of lawyers are hardcore evil. They're actual sociopaths. They're negative. They're these high IQ people I'm talking about that hate the average person and think that they're morons. And they honestly, they want to kill people with COVID. They want this whole COVID event happening because they hate society. They want to tank. They're taken over by the devil, pretty much. So anyway, just if you ever get involved with the legal system, beware. You might come across one of these sociopath people, and they're sociopaths, proper sociopaths, have the worst personalities, and they're just evil. And that's where we get our politicians from, because politicians are usually lawyers. So it's that whole industry. I mean, I wish that we could pick our lawyers and the people who run our society. I wish we could pick them from the veterinary industry or the food industry. Things would be much nicer. But we're picking our leaders from an industry that's just brutal. It's just got a huge percentage of sociopaths. It's similar to the stand-up comedy industry. Look into the stand-up comedy industry. A lot of them are sociopathic leftist communists, and a lot of them are mentally ill. That's why I was shocked when I got involved with the comedy industry a few years ago. I was like, whoa, there's a lot of nutters. A lot of nutters in stand-up comedy. I'm like, this is crazy. What the hell is going on? It attracts leftist nutters, stand-up comedy. Like Antifa, it attracts leftist nutters. So it's interesting. Some professions attract normal good people. Other professions attract just trash. And sadly, the legal and politician and the judge industry attracts the terrible people. How come Dan sucks? I think I like that. No, I'm kidding. I hate that. Yeah, exactly. Unless you were trying to cause problems or something like that. I think those people who rolled out the nooses, even those nooses they had, I think they were doing that to try and get the protesters about it. So they could go, oh, look how dangerous they are, they want to hang Dan Andrews. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Rise up, Melbourne.
Rise up, Melbourne!
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 We call the shots.
We call the shots!
We call the shots.
We call the shots!
We call the shots.
We call the shots! We've got Santa Claus here.
I am. Oh, trust me, Santa's here. Shit just got real.
Give Dan Andrews coal. Dan Andrews gets black coal. quote.
Pardon?
I like the line where people say, "Is the curve flat yet?" You seen that one? I love that one. It's like, it's so true. Is the curve flat yet?
I wanna be like them. Ever since I was little, it looked like fun. And it's no coincidence I've come. Oh, I can die when I'm done. That make me crazy. Baby, I'm crazy. Baby, I'm crazy. All of these. Baby, I'm crazy.
I'm near David Jones right now on Burke Street. Well, according to Tim, he was saying that the march was going to be heading to our Treasury House or whatever. So if the march doesn't turn left soon, then we're not heading to Treasury House. So this will be a little bit interesting. I hope we don't go to Flagstaff again. We really should go to Treasury House. That's where it's at. Where the people who are handling the money, the bankers are funding all of this. Remember when the bankers during the GFC in America, the bankers said to the government, if you don't bail us out, the whole economy is going to tank. They basically forced the American government to bail them out, which they did. Now, imagine when COVID first started. If this wasn't planned by the bankers would have said to the governments, there's no way you can shut down the economy. This is going to collapse the whole economy. We can't do a lockdown. This is crazy. You know, make people wear masks or something like that. Don't lock down. Don't make people stay in their homes. And they would have said that it's going to tank the economy. Without a doubt. Because it would. But the reason why this time around they didn't say that was because the bankers want COVID to happen and they're in on the whole plan. The bankers run the world. The bankers are funding the communist world government, and COVID is all a part of the communist world government program. They plan these things. It's decades in the making. I was listening to a whistleblower who was talking about back in about 2005, he had risen within the government, might have been some military general man or something like that, and he got to sit in on a meeting with top Freemasons, which is the Illuminati. He got to sit in with top members of the churches, and the police, and this was in London. And during this meeting, he was sort of new to it, but he was invited because he obviously rose up the ranks and stuff like that. And in the meeting back in 2005, they were talking about how China was getting out of hand and not going along with their programs, and they're going to make China catch a flu, and then they're going to start some sort of a war in like Iran, and so these people at the top who control our societies, they have bioweapons. They use them for political reasons. So these people, I'm telling you, they knew COVID was coming. They planned it, and they released it, and they planned everything that was going to happen from it. The reaction, like, I guarantee you, they already had the vaccine made. The reason why they were able to make a vaccine so fast, which they've never done in history, in less than a year, is because they already had it. It's all bullshit. Okay, yeah, they fund some university in there. Like in 2020, some university in Brisbane or Melbourne was trying to make a vaccine for it, but they didn't end up going with that vaccine. And that was just so that it made it the appearance that they were trying to invent a vaccine when it was already invented. There's also another reason I know that the whole of COVID was planned. Another reason I know it was planned was because I was listening to a guy who basically became friends with some people who I think were in the Illuminati. They didn't say they were in the Illuminati, but he said that there were people who were powerful and knew what was going on in the world. And he was told by them, because they liked him, he was a psychic, so he had a special psychic ability, which is just, when you got someone who's got that remote viewing psychic ability, it's so valuable because you can use it to trade shares with and predict the market and predict the future, and you can use it to find out all this stuff. So it's so valuable, that skill. So this guy, anyway, they found him and they liked him, and they were hiring him for jobs and stuff to use his psychic ability for things. They told him before COVID hit, they said, sell all your stuff, leave Hawaii and go to this island. And it was an island for the elite and stuff like that. And this guy did it. He followed what they were saying, because they said that you won't be able to fly again, and the whole world's going to change, and the currency's going to change and all this stuff. And they basically told him about COVID before COVID came. They didn't use the word COVID or anything, but they said this at the start of 2020. So he did it. So he was off, and he moved and was in the fancy private island, probably in the Pacific somewhere, a small island where the elite go to. And he was really worried, because when he first heard COVID came out, he thought, oh my God, this is what they were talking about. They're releasing a bug that's going to kill everyone. Because they didn't tell him that the bug was going to be actually harmless and it was a scam. But anyway, they didn't tell him the whole full story. They probably didn't even know the whole full story. Not everyone knows the whole full story. But anyway, he freaked the hell out, because it was like, oh my God, the world's ending. Everyone's going to die from this bug. Luckily, I knew these people, and they sent me to this island. Anyway, it ended up working out all right for him, because not everyone's dead. But man, did he imagine stuff they tell him in the future. He's 100% going to believe it. Anyway, these things are planned. The guy's name is Dick Allgaier. And if you look into Dick Allgaier, you look into his address and his records, and if he 100% moved to a different country at the start of 2020, like he says in this story, I'm sure he's not lying, and if he 100% moved to a different location and sold up everything and changed his whole life, if he really did that, which I reckon he totally did, then that means that the whole of COVID was planned. And anyway, it's just so obvious. I mean, we already know it anyway. You don't even have to investigate it. We know this whole thing was planned. It's all done for political reasons. And they plan it decades in the making. Yeah, it's interesting that now there's talk of a new variant. A new variant now that everyone's got their jab for the old variant. And a new variant now that they're trying to push boosters. Because in England, the booster uptake is at about 25%. So they want to get that to like 90%, like the other uptakes. So they're moving now to the statistics you'll see on the news will just all be about boosters. It won't be 90% vaccinated, it'll be 90% have had their booster. We've got some t-shirts here for sale. Here's another massive crowd table. This is a great idea, the t-shirt thing. I thought of that last week. I thought people should be rocking up with vans for food and stuff like that and products to sell. Because if I saw a good t-shirt now that says is the curve flat yet? That's one I would like to get. Is the curve flat yet? I'll totally buy it. Look at this quote by Einstein: "A foolish faith in authority is the worst enemy of truth." That's like the only good Einstein quote I've ever seen. I actually really hate Einstein. He actually spewed out a lot of false information with his science, and he stole inventions from other people. He was pumped up by the media because he was a communist. That's honestly the truth.
Where's your mum?
I'll get a hug from my camera.
Have a good day.
There's free hugs here. Anyway, yeah, Einstein is he's just totally wrong with his science, and he's corrupted mainstream science. So when you go to mainstream universities and you see mainstream scientists and stuff, a lot of them are just obsessed with Einstein and they spew out his ideas. But it's wrong. It's incorrect science. And because it's really complex stuff, when you're dealing with real complex stuff, you can get away with spewing out false information. You know, like if you build a staircase, it's hard to run a successful staircase business if the staircase is dodgy. People find out, right? When it comes to science, you can run bullshit science because it's complex. It's easier to run a scam. And Einstein was his, I think it might have been the theory of relativity. It's bullshit. It's just wrong. Tesla, who was a real genius Tesla, he said that I think the theory of relativity is a bunch of mumbo-jumbo bullshit. Something like that. If he really said that, which I reckon he did, then it means it's, Einstein's just a scam. People wouldn't know about him if he wasn't communist, and if the media didn't pump him up. He just became like a celebrity character. Right, so the march is heading back towards Flinders Street. So it is heading towards Parliament Treasury Gardens, which is great because it's a nice big park there and stuff. Share the link to the live stream. Share posts about Facebook. It's all about propaganda. We're putting out propaganda. Propaganda can be good or bad. The government's been putting out too much bad propaganda. We've got to put out good propaganda. If you've lost your job because of the jab, post about it. If you lost your business or lost money because of the jab, post about it. How would you feel if you were, well, I was talking about stand-up comedy before, if you were some stand-up comic. Man, I mean, you couldn't do all these performances and stuff. Totally, you would have lost heaps of money. Someone like Dave Hughes, he would have lost a lot of money. And I've seen some of the posts he's put on the internet. He's annoyed about it. I think he's annoyed at how the government's handled it. He seems to believe in COVID, I think, and maybe even forced jabs, but he still disagrees with it. And so that's something I think we've got to realise with these protests as well, is that there are people here who actually believe in a lot of the good crap, but they just disagree with how the government's handling it. And if you just think, imagine if you do believe in it, you would think it's absolute bullshit the way they handled it, because they've handled it wrong. I mean, I spoke to a guy that was like a top funeral director, and when the lockdowns came in, he was trying to communicate to Dan Andrews and say, hey, we can still run funerals and we can still do this and that, and we can, he was trying to work out a way to keep open, and Dan Andrews wasn't accepting anything from him. And I imagine all these other industries and all these other people, because it was just like, no, we're shutting everything down and we're tanking it all. Because we've got to break all these small businesses. That's the whole point of it. They want these small businesses closed. They didn't want to try and work out a way that they can be open safely. None. They made this lockdown ridiculous and severe to bankrupt all these businesses. And I'll try and point out where there's for lease signs and stuff like that. There's a lot of empty places in the city. I spoke to someone the other day who went into the city on a normal weekday, and even though the lockdown sort of ended, he was saying how it's still real quiet in the city. I reckon the only good thing about COVID, I reckon there's two big good things about COVID. It's reduced the amount of traffic on the streets because I drive around a lot, so that's nice. But also it's woken up a lot of people, and that's probably the most key thing. We realised that, full-blown commies run the world, and they run our governments. They're fully evil. And every day I struggle to comprehend and just believe how corrupt the mainstream media is and how disgusting it is. It's just straight to the devil. And it's trying to, and it doesn't walk around looking all evil. It tries to put a nice cover on. It's like a fake, shifty con man. And he's sleazy, and he's got AIDS, and he's got diseases, and he's dirty, and he's evil, but he wears a nice suit and wears a nice haircut, and you can't see how bad he is at first. But then when you look into it, you realise this guy is just disgusting. That's what the mainstream media is like.
Jason!
You know what? If I had some sort of business, well, I don't have a business, but like one that would be appropriate, I could do it, but I don't need to. But you could hand out flyers for your business at one of these protests. That's clever advertising. You could just stand there. Let's say you like clean toilets at a job or something like that. You just stand there and hand out flyers. You know, you want your toilet cleaned or whatever. A little piece of paper. You could give it out to so many people. That's what you do with advertising. You've got to be clever. Because you can't just run TV ads or Facebook ads. You can't do what other people are doing. Advertising works when you do something that other people aren't doing. Then it gets attention. But if it's something that everyone else is doing, it just doesn't get anywhere. Like you listen to 3AW radio and they'll have like a Harvey Norman ad. I mean, they have to run so many of those ads to get any sort of sales. You've got to find a unique way to advertise your business. That also relates to COVID because people can't work for the government. You can't work for big building sites because you need to have the vaccine. So you have to work for yourself. You have to come up with your own business that gets around all the rules. And this handing out flyers at this protest might be one way you can get around it. See, and that's why they want to get all these businesses bankrupt, get everyone on welfare, and then they'll do in Austria what they do to Austria. Everyone has to get the jab. Then, when all these people are unemployed on government welfare, then they have to get the jab because the government will make it a requirement to get your welfare benefits. I bet you. But yeah, Austria, it's amazing what Austria did. Austria just said, you all have to get the jab. And just said, yeah, you have to get it. And that's pretty outrageous. But we're the world's most locked down city, Melbourne, as if they're not going to do that here. They're doing it in Austria, they're going to damn well try and do it here. But if these protests go well, maybe we could stop it. But I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere along the line the government just came out and said, fuck all you guys, you all have to get the jab. The booster rate numbers isn't high enough. The booster rate's only at 60%. That's not enough. You know what, footage from this ambulance will be an awesome way to tell how big the crowd is. Oh, it might be a vaccine damaged person. Watch out. No, literally, seriously, you notice in the second half of 2021, when the vaccine rate was big, because it wasn't big in the first half of 2021, the second half of 2021, what do you see more and more and more of driving around Melbourne? Ambulances. So many of them that they're running out of ambulances and they're using other vehicles that aren't the usual ones. They're like signed differently. That's how stretched they are. And also, what do we see in 2021? The variant Delta pop up. Interesting. Did the vaccine create the variant of Delta? And what do we see now? Booster shots. And now we're starting to see a new variant. Are they connected? Are they creating a problem? Like what David Icke says, problem, reaction, solution. beautiful Christmas tree at Fed Square. I'm surprised the communists haven't banned the Christmas tree. It's hateful. I mean, they banned teaching Christianity at the schools. I remember we used to have at our school someone come in once a week and we'll do some Christian stuff. But now that's banned in Victoria. So kids in schools aren't getting this Christian lessons. I'm not even that pro-Christian or anything, but it's because it's a political agenda. They're trying to destroy white Christian society and capitalism.
Save our children!
Anything you want to say?
Yeah, bro. Love and unity is the way to go forward. And we all know what's wrong or right. Kill the bill!
Hey, they, in communist Vietnam, did they ban Christian lessons in schools?
Yes.
Because you know it's banned in Victoria.
Yes. Same, bro.
Yeah. Because when I was back in the 90s and shit, 2000s,
Yeah.
we used to do religious education.
Okay, it's gone.
Yeah, not anymore. Yeah.
They're more interested in teaching masturbation now.
Oh, what's that?
In Australia.
And, what age are they teaching it at?
Primary, they're going to roll it out soon.
Yeah, they want to teach transgender
That's
as well.
right.
Yeah.
I'm sure you need to know.
Yeah. Part of attacking Christian society is also attacking capitalism, because you'll notice that a lot of good Christians, I've noticed it, run small businesses. Like I know a guy who prints stuff, and it's just great prices, a good business he runs from his house. He prints stuff like Christmas cards and flyers and stuff like that. My uncle is a good Christian. He maintains pools, sporting grounds and stuff like that. It's a good small business. Communists don't do that. They don't run their own businesses. They tend to work for big corporations, and then they join the union, and they're just weirdos, let's be honest. They're just total weirdos. I mean, you'd find a lot of the communists work in sick jobs as well, like just weird jobs that just wouldn't work. Speaking of communism, this here is communist architecture. It's called modernism, but I reckon actually modernism was really around in the 50s and 60s. And then modernism evolved into what I call uglyism. It's actually, the idea is to make shit that's ugly. And that's cool. But this is coming from the commies, 100%. When communism took over the world after World War II, it really took over after World War II. That's when you see this modernism in the architecture come about. And in all these different places of the world, modernism comes about. Why? Because they don't want traditional Midwestern American homes. They don't want traditional Greek homes. They don't want traditional English cottages, because it's nationalism. You see what I mean? So they promote modernism, which now is really uglyism, as a way to destroy each city's culture. So Melbourne, which is a global city, of course, you drive around and you see tons and tons of modernism, like in the architecture, like this building here, modernism. Looks ridiculous and ugly. And I bet you in like 20 years' time, the government will give it a facelift with whatever's in fashion then. Or maybe it's scary to think it would still be in fashion then because it just looks so ugly, but it probably will. But but you don't see this. You see it in Los Angeles. You don't see it in like Kansas City in America. You see beautiful, nice, well-built homes that don't have this commie architecture. So it's called modernism, but it really should be called communism. Literally, it should be like in the architecture books at universities, it should literally just be labelled communism. That's what it should be labelled, because that's what it is. I mean, that's how deep this conspiracy goes. It even goes down to the type of buildings that are being built. It just shows how much control the communists want. They want control of everything, the type of music people listen to, the type of clothes they wear, just everything. Yeah. So it's like they could have adopted, with their modernism, they could have adopted a style of building that's like a mixture of the different nations, and it didn't have to be just disgusting, right? But they went with modernism, which is like so ugly. It's like, is that intentional? I'm just highlighting this comment here because it's like, yeah, they specifically went with, for their communist worldwide architecture, they went with a style that was really, really ugly. And I think they've done it with music and other things because it lowers people's spirits and it doesn't inspire them and it makes them want to give up on things. And it's actually, it works. Because imagine you're in a city that's being locked down by the communists, right? And your school's shit, your architecture's shit, your music shit. What do? People go kill themselves, or they just give up. They don't fight for it. So that's why they make it ugly. You see? Because it contributes to the person just giving up, which is what they want.
I've been waiting there a while.
And I was speaking about Scientology, I think, in the previous live stream, someone made a comment about Scientology and I mentioned how I'm no longer one, but you do learn stuff from it. One thing that I learned, which is everyone needs to listen to this right now, is that L. Ron Hubbard was getting attacked. He was the guy who created Scientology. He's dodgy, but he's still good. He was getting attacked by the mainstream media for his unusual religion and stuff like that. And he specifically hired former CIA agents and investigators to find out why his religion was getting attacked across the world, because he noticed it was a coordinated attack in America, England, Australia. And guess what conclusion he came to? He came to the conclusion that the attacks were coming from the Bank of England, from 10 guys, and I think that's that theory of 13 families that run the world or something like that. He said there was 10 or 12 who were, these were top bankers at the Bank of England, because the British Empire controlled the world. And they were running all these attacks. And he found out not only were they trying to attack Scientology because it wasn't going with their program, they were also engaged in getting every nation into debt. That was the whole point of bankrupting all the nations. And this was back in 1967, he found this out. This was back before all these nations were completely indebted. Because if you look around now, if you look at Ireland, Italy, Australia, America, this country, that country, all up to their eyeballs in debt. They weren't that much into debt back in the 60s. It was much more normal. But that's being created by the bankers. And this is what L. Ron Hubbard said. He goes, why? Because when you get someone into debt, you can control them. That was the whole point of it. You break these nations, you destroy their nationalism, you get them up to their eyeballs in debt, and then they have to do what the fuck you say. That's the whole point of the worldwide bankers conspiracy. They're hell-bent on world control. They're doing it using money. They're bankrupting nations. And then they're forcing those nations to do things that its citizens don't want. So our governments, we're not in control of our governments anymore. Agents of the bankers are in control of our government. So our nations are all infiltrated and stuff. So that's why they're doing stuff that we don't want. Look, imagine you've got a town everyone gets together and decides on the rules of the town. Well, obviously in the town, we would all get together and say, no, I don't want to lock down. I don't want to wear a mask. So why are they doing not what the citizens of the town want? Because they don't work for us. It doesn't matter what we say. They're in control, and they're doing what the F they want. And they want us to get this jab. And they want to reduce our population, and they want to do all this stuff. So they've hijacked the world, basically, the bankers. So we're here at Treasury Gardens. But yeah, that quote, that finding out that information from Hubbard was really interesting, because you're like, whoa. And the bankers are the communists. The bankers created communism. They funded communist Russia. They funded all these leftist ideas. They're the ones doing it. And the real truth is that they don't even really believe in communism, actually. They're not like those weirdo lefties in the inner cities of Melbourne who go to the Antifa rallies and stuff. Those people actually kind of believe in communism. But these bankers, they don't even believe in it. They're just using it as a tool. They're using that political belief as a tool to achieve their world domination.
Rules 4 is regarding the act of the Constitution and the laws made by the Parliament of the Commonwealth. Under the Constitution, shall bind on all courts, judges, and the people of every state in every part of the Commonwealth. That includes you, government. And Section 51, we have got the legislative power of government. The government, Parliament, Commonwealth Parliament, capital P, have the power to make laws for the peace, order, and...
Yeah, debt's all about control. I mean, I once took out a loan, and it took me years to pay it back, and really pissed me off. I thought it would be easy to pay it back, but somehow you just get lazy and you're stuck having to pay this debt. So it's a really good way to control people using debt. It's actually a way of doing slavery. It's actually a way of doing slavery without the shackles.
They cannot rise above it. They cannot be.
So I'll stay away from debt. I'll be really careful about borrowing money and stuff.
51
and I feel sorry for people in Melbourne and in Australia who want to try and own a house and they take out an incredibly massive loan that they'll never be able to pay back.
That is basically for
basically slaves and bankers.
Borders. Because internally, we only have boundaries and limits. This is something we all need to start learning and understanding. We have no internal borders, okay? We have boundaries and limits. The only purpose of these boundaries and limits is because that is showing the geographic location to where each of the states can legislate to. We, the people, can travel freely everywhere. That's all there is to it. Now, it's also important to note, at these invisible boundary lines, it's a bit like waterways. They say that the government, it used to be the water companies own a certain amount of land either side of waterways. It is the same with these boundaries. These boundaries are exclusively under the authority or jurisdiction of the Commonwealth. Who do we meet when we get to a border? State officers. They've got no jurisdiction. They have fooled us all with fear. Section 92, was regarding movement. There was a High Court case, Greatwick versus Johnson, in 1945 during the war. Now, this case determined that even in times of war, with bullets flying, our freedom of movement cannot be restricted or prohibited. It can only be regulated. So, for example, speed limits for safety. They cannot prohibit or restrict our movement. Now, we know they're looking at some of the stuff we put into the courts, and it's very interesting that all of a sudden the bloody boundaries are open.
We have got at section 109 inconsistency of law. So this is regarding when a law of the state is inconsistent with a law of the Commonwealth, the latter shall prevail and the former to the extent of the inconsistency is invalid. So this is regarding, so the states, all of the states' public health acts across Australia, which is where the CHOs get their authority, they are inconsistent with the Biosecurity Act. It's a federal act. It's a Commonwealth Act. So hence, these health acts need to be rendered invalid. They should never have been put in place in the first place. Our health has nothing to do with the government. You'll also find, as you go through things, so there are certain sections of the Biosecurity Act that also need to be invalidated. At section 478, subsection 1C, it contravenes the prohibition on civil conscription pursuant to section 5123A. It is basically a bloody circus. And if any of you have tuned in to see what's going on at Parliament, how much do we pay these guys? It's a joke. It's a bloody circus in there. They can stand down. We need a vote of no confidence. It's infuriating. So, 5123A. This is for the provision of maternity allowances. Everything is in pensions, allowances, endowments, benefits, etc. So, but so as to not authorise civil conscription. That is spelled out in the Constitution. You cannot civilly conscript Australians or force them into any medical service. Yeah. And what have they been willing? Now, section 5123A strictly prohibits this. You cannot mandate, you cannot force anybody into any kind of medical service, whether that be preventative, being vaccines or masks, or whether that be diagnostic with testing. Now, we had a case in the Attorney General of Victoria versus the Commonwealth. I say all of this so you can look it up, because if you start to look up these cases and see the determinations, you just go, well, how the hell can this be happening? So the Attorney General of Victoria versus the Commonwealth, I think it's 1945 High Court of Australia. Now that clearly determines the boundaries, okay? The Commonwealth government has no power to make any laws regarding our health. Their only power is to provide the funding for those services. Child endowment, widow's pension, okay? Now, the states, they can make laws regarding health, but only regulatory laws that are only applicable to the service providers. They can't regulate us. They can't regulate us. It is totally out of their control. This government needs to be bloody put in their place with what they've done to us, I swear. So,
I'm going to end the live stream and I'll start another one.
Absolutely.
Just trying to keep them about an hour long.
Over the boundary. So, what's going on?